Hello, hello, kings and queens and everybody in between. I'm Ashley Michelle, and welcome back to another episode of the Goddess Complex. If you're new here, welcome home. If you've been here, welcome back. I am coming to you with another amazing guest. You all know we do a monthly guest on the Goddess Complex. If you're interested, you can always shout us out at info@starseedshadows.com. And if it feels aligned, we will get into you. You already know the visual will be on YouTube. I, of course, am in gym gear, still doing prep, so don't be surprised. And I am so excited to introduce this beautiful lady in red. Her name is Zoey, and she is a fellow mystic and healer. She's a fellow reader, and I cannot wait for this conversation. So, Zoey, tell the people who you are, darling.
I'm Zoey Greco. So nice to meet you guys. I'm really excited to be here. I really feel like there is already so much resonance between you and I. So I know that your audience will receive me with love, and I'm grateful for that.
Mhm.
I am a professional intuitive. My work is obviously focused on providing spiritual guidance, helping people to activate their highest timeline, step into deeper levels of authenticity to become automatic magnets for the life that is truly theirs to live. But
Mhm.
I'm also really focused on empowering people to have deeper relationships with their own intuition. So I'm actually currently teaching a cohort of my intuition activation mentorship, which is like a 30-day program I teach about connecting
Great.
to your intuitive senses, activating any dormant abilities, and finding clarity and confidence in your gifts. So
Mhm.
I'm really focused on not just being like people's phone line to spirit, but providing them that line of direct communication. So,
Yeah.
in previous experiences and iterations of my work, I was in a sound healing band called Rogue
Oh, cool.
Reverie. So I'm a musician. You can see some instruments behind me.
Yeah.
um, I am a healer. I've done, energy work and energy healing using crystals and intuitive modalities for years, but currently I'm in sort of the next iteration of those offerings and experiences. And as I myself am up leveling, I'm attracting an up leveled version of my client base as well, which
Mhm.
is so cool to see. And then, of course, I'm a podcast host as well. I host the
Yeah.
Mystic Rebel podcast, which will soon be called the Higher Self Hotline. We're doing a little bit of a
Ooh,
rebrand,
I love
and I hope
that.
everyone will come and join me over there as well to receive similar medicine and similar messages just through a different voice, a different lens. But I share real client sessions on the podcast, and then I also share amazing interviews with practitioners like yourself. And I'm super excited to have you on our show pretty soon. And
Yeah.
that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I think on a personal level, I am married to truly the greatest human that has ever existed. I really
Mm,
feel that completely. I'm an escape room enthusiast. I actually travel to do escape rooms. I've done over 200,
that's
and it's a
amazing.
passion of mine. A dog mom to three,
Ooh,
and just a down to earth bitch. So I'm happy to
I
be here and
love
excited
it. Oh
to
my
connect.
God. We need to talk more about the escape room enthusiast Mas Tarde because I absolutely love that. Zoe, what part of the world are you in?
I am currently in Phoenix, Arizona, but I'm
Oh,
from New York City originally.
okay.
Grew up in Connecticut, doing the whole like private boarding school, like,
Yeah.
yuppie white
Hmm.
bullshit. And then I
Yeah.
went to California for college and
Connecticut's
then
full
found
of
my
white
way here.
bullshit.
Yes, exactly. And then found my
No
way.
shade, Connecticut. We love you.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
And now I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I've been here for about a decade, and I'm really
Okay.
enjoying the vibe of the desert. It's got some very unique medicine.
Have you seen any aliens for our star seeds out there?
I have not laid my eyes upon them, but
Hmm.
I believe and I know, and listen, like the government literally told us it's a reality. So like
So
who,
many times they've told us, right?
like people who still don't believe in aliens blow my mind. Like, sorry, what do you need to
Insane.
hear? Like, what evidence do you want like an actual visitation? Like, what's it going to
Right.
take? You know what I mean?
What
What's
is
it
it
going to
going to
take?
take when there are thousands of people saying that don't even know each other, that aren't even connected, reporting some of the same sort of experiences, not including our Starseed fam that have had their own interactions with alien consciousness and all of that.
Or
It's insane.
embody it
And then
themselves.
embody it themselves. And then the government, who has
Mm-hmm.
said how many times, okay, bros, let me stop. Yeah, they're real. Okay.
Exactly. Also, the thing that blows my mind is people who believe that in the vast infinite energy of the universe
Right.
that we're the only life that exists, like,
Isn't that
how
insane?
self-centered, like, that's a very
Self-centered.
self-focused mentality.
Oh my God, Zoe, I say the
Obviously,
same thing. That's
in
the
the
exact same
infinite
thing. Mhm.
existence, clearly we're not all that exists, so
No.
absolutely, but not any sightings personally,
Mhm.
but I'm waiting. Oh, I'm
Right?
waiting.
They're coming. They're coming. I've heard the desert has some very unique medicine. It's on my list of places to go for sure and
Well, now you have a place to
experience.
stay.
Exactly, exactly. Zoe, for my astrologers out there, tell the people your big three: sun, moon, sun, rising, and moon.
I am an Aries sun.
Ooh,
I know. I'm a Sagittarius moon.
oh my
I
God.
know, and a Cancer rising. And I also like to mention that my Venus is in Taurus. Um,
Ooh.
because I do definitely have that like bougie side of me that loves
Mm-hmm.
opulence and luxury.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely a lot of fire. And it doesn't like, it doesn't help or hurt that I am also an Italian American from New
Yep.
York, like
Yep.
a
Yep.
lot
Yep.
of tell it like it is energy inside
Yes.
of
Oh
me.
my God, friends. I feel like there might be some sort of collaboration. So I'm a Sagittarius sun, a Cancer rising, Aquarius moon with a Venus in Capricorn. Yeah. I know.
I'm sorry, we're made for each
Wow.
other.
Seriously. I know. So be on the lookout for that.
Exactly.
Oh my God, I love it. So how long have you been in this spiritual sphere, this like little nook of the internet that we've kind of overtaken? Um, and I ask you that question because, as you know, and my listeners know, I'm a TV personality. And the one thing that surprised me the most was so many people that are not yet awakened and that didn't know that we exist, that didn't know that like you can book sound healing sessions, you can book tarot, like we're a real thing. This is a real job. We're doing this real work. And we sit in this bubble on the internet day in and day out. I just wrote an email about this, like, conversing with the Pleiadians is another day at the office for me. And then,
Yeah.
like other people are like, what? And so, I guess my question, yeah, is how long have you been in this universe and have you noticed that experience, the same experience as you've gotten bigger?
Thank you so much for asking this question because there's so many juicy nuggets to touch on inside of
Mm-hmm.
just one question.
Mm-hmm.
So, to answer your question directly, I have been visibly doing this work online and out in the ethers for about a decade. It's been
Mm-hmm.
9 years.
Okay.
And my favorite question people ask me is, How long have I been psychic? I've been psychic my whole life,
Right.
came this way. As did
Exactly.
you, as did all of
Right.
us.
Right.
And I've been doing it
Ooh,
visibly
yours
for
started
about a
ringing.
decade. And it's interesting because even though I've gained like familiarity, even though people have begun to know me more widely, I have really been very protected
Yeah.
from lower energy or lower
Yeah.
experiences. Like I
Yeah.
really don't receive like hate.
Mm-hmm.
There've been a couple times where I've put content out that has gone viral and then has
Right.
been triggering to people.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, but
People
I
get
found it really
triggered when you're
interesting
their
because
mirror.
yes,
Well, yeah, when you're their
100%.
mirror, people get triggered by that, especially when they're like, "Holy shit, you're my mirror right now." And that's what I've
Mhm.
realized too when it comes to that sort of stuff.
Especially when you're talking about spiritual truths, it's things that
Mm-hmm.
human beings are maybe sometimes unwilling to accept,
Yes.
because it brings them an awareness of their personal responsibility in their spiritual
Ye-
journey, and they're
Yes.
really uncomfortable with that. Or
Mm-hmm.
I think, when we talk about the idea of like manifesting, which not my favorite word, but like creating our reality,
Mm-hmm.
and someone will say like, "Well, there's been so many interesting things." So, people will sometimes accuse me of having a mental illness, which
Oh yeah.
doesn't bother me because
No.
I don't, and I know that I don't.
Right. Right.
I've had some obviously. I've had a video go viral where I was wearing kind of a lower cut top, and that was the
Mm-hmm.
first time the internet men were making comments about. I had never had comments about
Mm-hmm.
my body before, and
Mm-hmm.
that was really interesting. And even though they were technically positive, they were still really unwelcome. And that's
Oh
like,
my God. If I had $1 for every time somebody was like, put a bra on, and I'm like, no, thanks. I'm gonna let the girls
this
hang
is where they belong.
loose. Exactly.
I've
I
been
know
really
what you
interested
mean.
in that, but I've been interested in the fact that people will create assumptions about my life or my life experience. So if I
Yeah.
talk about the fact that we we create our reality, people will be like, "Easy to say from your mansion." I'm like, "First of all,
Mhm.
I don't know what house you're looking at. I don't live in a
Right,
mansion. I live in a
right, right,
nice,
right.
beautiful home that I worked really hard for, and
Exactly.
built with my partner,
Right.
but I don't live in a mansion." Or like people will assume that I've never experienced trauma or hardship because
Yeah.
I will share that, we have soul contracts and agree to have
Right.
certain experiences in our
Agree.
lives. And so
Right.
people will just assume that like I've never had a difficult time. And I don't publicly discuss my trauma, not because
Mhm.
I don't care to, but because it involves other people who don't agree to have their lives be
Mhm.
public. And
I
that's not
understand that.
mine to share.
I
So
understand.
I haven't shared my trauma, but it doesn't mean I've never experienced any. So being in the public
And
eye, it's
well,
a
also too,
very
just to
interesting thing.
interrupt you
Please.
really quick. This whole like, I totally get you when you say like you haven't shared your trauma, but I think you're also touching on something bigger where as spiritual leaders, teachers, mentors, thought leaders, we feel this responsibility to share our trauma. But what if being visible had nothing to do with sharing your trauma? You know, like where did that narrative come from that is so like it's like inside the ethers of the spiritual community that we have to be like crying in a puddle of tears to be all changed and shit and affect somebody's life. What if we all have trauma? We all have shit. It doesn't mean we can't show up fucking smiling, you know?
Exactly. Also, my trauma is not my purpose. Like
Right.
that my
Why
trauma
are we
is
being
not the
defined by
work.
that?
My trauma is not the work I'm here to do with you. Like
Right,
that's
right.
my personal journey that
Hmm.
influenced my experience and my direction.
Hmm.
And I think the one thing I will say about it though is I can understand people
Hmm.
wanting to know more about me when
Hmm.
I am holding space and getting so much access to
Right,
their trauma and their experience
right.
and their story and their spirit. So
Hmm.
I can understand wanting that to feel like more of a two-way street. And that
Of
is something
course.
that I'm really currently working on cultivating is
Hmm.
deeper vulnerability with my
Hmm.
audience because I've come to
Hmm.
this understanding that authenticity, like intuition is the voice of our authentic self. It's the voice
Hmm.
that tells us like how to approach and stand in and embody our authenticity. But
Hmm.
authenticity is like an inner journey and vulnerability is the voice we give to our authenticity. It's the way that
Right,
we bring it out into the world. And so
right.
I'm currently cultivating a way to be more vulnerable with my audience or, with people like
Hmm.
your audience that I come to share with and connect
Right,
with, but I also understand that vulnerability and trauma dumping or just like sharing my trauma or my trauma
right.
experience are not the same thing.
They're not.
So, I think that's something that I'm comfortable enough being vulnerable enough to say that I'm
Mhm.
still navigating and figuring out exactly
Yeah.
how I want to show up in my vulnerability.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, speaking of which, you and I both mentor folks, and I work a lot with budding spiritual business owners, CEOs, all of that. And so,
Mhm.
one of the things that I talk about a lot, since we're on this subject of being vulnerable online and all of that, is how do you create, you touch on something important. It is important for us to create a connection with our audience. That's how we attract our soulmate clients. And oftentimes we can create connection through the things that we've been through. And so, one thing that I love to say and love to coach my clients on, any of you guys listening, you probably know what I'm going to say, is, I always say like 1 to 3 stories about you. And like you
Mm.
said, it doesn't have to be like trauma dumping. So, like, one thing I always go to is the fact that I grew up a Jehovah's Witness. You want to call it trauma, call it trauma. You don't, you don't. Either way, it's unique. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
How do you help your people that are aspiring to be like you or are aspiring to step into deeper levels of visibility, knowing that that comes with deeper levels of vulnerability? How do you
Mm.
guide them through that? You know?
What an amazing question. And I think this is something that I am still navigating because
Yeah.
in like the private space inside of session, I'm able
Mhm.
to really help people sort of go from where they are to where they want to be.
Right.
Um, and I think part of helping people move through that process has been the podcast, actually,
Yeah.
bringing sessions out into the light for people to
Yeah.
witness and experience. Because I started to realize early in my career that we are all moving through a different shade of the same experience.
Ooh,
And
love
there
that.
is so
Mhm.
much similarity
Mhm.
vibrationally, energetically
Mhm.
in the human experience. So
Mhm.
if a conversation I'm having with one person, I tend to have with, five more clients because they
Mhm.
are on a similar wavelength. And so I thought to
Right.
myself, like, wait a second, I could be helping so many more people at once if I'm willing to bring their stories into the light. And we do it
Mhm.
anonymously. I do everything I can to protect that person's identity just for their own
Right.
comfort.
Right.
But, people are really able to share their story, show up and inspire
Mhm.
other people to the point that I will get DMs from people being like, "I wish I could be friends with that client because
Yeah,
I felt like you were talking to me." And I don't know if this is directly answering your question, but this is the
it is.
method that I have found and discovered for helping people move through that journey. But the other piece of it, which is the spiritual entrepreneurship, I personally feel a strong responsibility to be very transparent about my business and
Mhm.
to be transparent about my success because I know there are so many people, especially my audience is very similar to yours, people who have a higher calling, but maybe
Mhm.
feel fearful actually of
Yeah.
taking the steps out of where they are, like the security of like all that
Mhm.
root chakra stuff that they've built up, all
Ooh,
the
the
like
root chakra, honey. Yes. Like
corporate
survival.
jobs. Yes,
Mhm.
and they're afraid to let that go. And I feel a responsibility to live my success out loud, not
Yeah.
like ostentatiously, but to live my
Yeah.
success out loud, to be a an example of what it looks like to heed that calling and allow success into your life.
Yeah.
Because I think people believe that they can't do this work and be successful. And you actually shared
Agreed.
something. I watched a live that you did recently where you were putting your makeup on. I watched it later
Ah,
while I was putting my makeup on. And
yes,
you
I
were
love it.
talking about like, when people do spiritual labor and people want like these, $15, $20
Right.
readings. Let me tell you something. When I was charging $15 for
Right.
15 minutes, the clients that I was attracting were
Whew.
not in alignment for my
Such low
purpose.
vibration.
Yes.
Such, I remember that when I was charging low like that, just people would just sit down and be like, okay, prove to me that it's real. And yeah, and I'm like, if you don't get out of my face, boy, like right now, like, bye, take your money. I don't need the 20 that bad. you
You are speaking my
know?
experience. The
Mhm.
skepticism, the, like, "Prove
Yeah.
yourself, witch," like, that was
Yeah.
so intense,
Yes.
but also, like, the misguided information like, people
Mhm.
would sit across from me and be like, "How do I voodoo this guy into loving
Yeah.
me?" And I'm like, "First of
Yeah.
all,
Yeah.
everyone has this really cool thing called human free will, and you
Right.
actually can't make someone love you. It's, like, actually not, like, ethical. It's also not really love if you're, like, forcing it. Like,
I
there's so
was
much we
just
could
telling
learn
a private
here."
client that she's stuck on this dude. And I'm like, girlfriend, I'm not doing whatever it is you need. And I suggest you don't go find that.
Mhm. I just feel
Karma's
like it
real,
takes you
honey.
down this, like, darker and darker path, so
Mhm.
I think there's a like, I feel a responsibility to show up and say, "You can be successful as a spiritual entrepreneur. You can
Right.
not only find success," which I know is important to people, but more importantly, you can find fulfillment, you can
Yeah.
find deeper satisfaction, and you can
Hmm.
find impact. You can actually
Hmm.
create a positive impact on the lives of others,
Right.
and with that, I think there's this trade-off that we do, and I feel like I'm able to talk to you about this maybe more easily than anybody else, especially
Hmm.
because you have had an experience on reality television, which I
Hmm.
have not.
Hmm.
But it's something my husband and I talk all the time. We're like, would we do that? Like, would we be on a
Yeah.
reality show? And we
Right.
decided that there's certain circumstances in which we would, but
Yeah.
I digress. It's more about like I'm here to do the work. I never showed up here to like build an audience or become
Yeah.
famous or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm discovering that in, a 21st century world, marketing yourself involves not just being the service, but being the business and having to
Yeah.
create for social media and having to do all these
Mhm.
things that like were never on my bingo card, like were
Right.
never what I wanted. But as I'm doing it and as the audience is coming and it's growing, I with that is coming, like, the love letters, the gratitude, the
Mhm. Mhm.
appreciation, like, people wanting to just give me my flowers, just literally
Right.
sending me notes being like, "Hey, I've never spoken to you, but you changed my life, and I just want you to know."
Yeah.
And that has been a really interesting thing to step
Mhm.
into is
Mhm.
like the recognition
Yeah.
and allowing myself to receive that because that's really hard for me because I did not
Mhm.
start doing this so I could get put on a pedestal. And I'm not saying people are putting
Right.
me on a pedestal, but I didn't start doing this
I know what you
for
mean
the
though.
accolades. And
Right.
I'm almost like if I receive them, does it negate what I'm doing? But what I'm coming to
Mhm.
understand is I have to receive the recognition in order for the message to spread further. And
100%.
that's really hard for me to take in, and I would actually love to hear from you. Like, I'd love to grow with you in this moment and hear
Mm.
about how you have been navigating that because I
Yeah.
think it's, something you're also experiencing in a totally different
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. I love that you brought that up. And the one thing that I love to remember and speak about all the time is that we live in the earth matrix, right? And we live in a world of duality, as above, so below. And so as you become more and more visible, we're going to get our flowers. And then we're also going to get those trolls that, oh my God, you have a mental illness. There was somebody that commented and was like, she needs therapy. And I was like, yes, honey, you do too. Like we all need therapy. I was
I'm
like,
in there
therapy.
weekly, baby.
Yes, like therapy in conjunction with spirituality is exactly what needs to happen. And then, the love letters and the love bombing and people that love you. I think the biggest thing to remember when it comes to that is like, okay, it's working. And when I say it's working, I mean
It
that my
is.
work is reaching the people that it's supposed to reach, whether you are paying me or not. That doesn't matter, but it's reaching somebody. And the one thing I love to remember too is the idea of like, we don't know where people are. We don't know where they're at in life. They could be going through some really traumatic or toxic shit. Then they put on your podcast or they see a post of mine and it makes them rethink everything differently. It reminds me of the version of myself that I was during my Saturn return, but just before I started my business. And I was like sitting in a pool of like open beer bottles with a drunk boyfriend at the time on my couch, and it's like 7 a.m. on a Sunday, and I'm like still coked out from the night before, and I'm like, something is not right here. Like, this is
Mm.
not it. This isn't it.
Ooh,
I remember that
yes.
so vividly, just realizing like this is not it. And slowly but surely, I started building my empire and started building Starseed Shadows and started getting back into spirituality. And I remember that girl, and I remember how lost she was. And I remember, what did that girl do? She took in information from people she trusted. She read books. She listened to podcasts. She did what people are doing right now when it comes to our work. And so there
Mm.
is a responsibility with the work that we do. I'm a firm believer in that. Like when you're called to this work, especially at these higher levels where you are looking at hundreds of thousands of people looking at your content,
Mhm.
that's deep. That's a deep layer of visibility. And that also there's a responsibility there. You can't stop now, you know?
Oh, the
Yeah.
things you're saying are hitting, these are deep cuts. Like you're
Yeah.
throwing some deep
Yeah.
cuts.
Yeah.
And I really resonate with this. I had this conversation with my husband probably, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, where I had this realization, and I say this with deep humility. And
Mhm.
that's the thing I struggle with is like how to speak truth
Mm.
without losing humility. Cause I'm like, how do
Mm.
I talk about myself honestly and positively and still, not sound like I'm obsessed
You're
with myself?
you're afraid to say that your shit don't stink. Girl, if you
No,
don't
I'm
toot your
I'm
own
afraid
horn,
to
who's
say
gonna?
my shit. Yes, I'm
Yes.
afraid to say it don't stink. You're right.
Yes, yes, yes. I always tell people, if you don't toot your own horn, who's gonna toot it for you?
I know. I know. And I really, it was this moment where I was like, it's that part of me that takes that responsibility and
Mhm.
understands that responsibility. I know that people take my words as truth.
Yes.
And I know that.
Yes.
And because of
Yes.
that, I am so intentional and careful with what I say
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I want to create an impact, but I want it to be a positive impact. Like
Right, right,
I will be
right,
honest with you.
right.
Like if you're in session and you're wanting to move down a path that is not in your highest good, I will tell you. I will let you know because I'm receiving that from a higher source that I
Mhm.
trust.
Same,
But
yeah.
at the same time, I know in the deepest part of my truth that I am worthy of doing this work because I
Yeah.
care about the impact that I have,
Right,
because I'm not
right.
the person out here. Like, how many clients do you get who come to you and say, someone told me that all my chakras are messed up and in the
Fuck
wrong
yeah. Oh,
places and it's going to cost me $3,000 to put them back. I'm
right.
like,
I'm like, calm down, girl. Let's,
baby.
let's let's take a moment. Let's breathe through it. Let's breathe
Uh,
through it. All of that. I've got the new Mac too. It does that shit all the time.
I know. I'm like,
But what was I gonna say? So when it comes to that, right? When it comes to clients and I think personally, you're leaning more towards your Venus and Taurus versus that Aries energy. Because that
Mm,
Aries energy, sometimes the people want the rawness instead of the curated
mhm.
energy, right? And I get what you mean. We do have to be careful what we say,
Yeah,
and as I'm getting bigger, I'm realizing that too. Because those of you that have been with me for a while know I kind of say whatever I want. And so
which is
sometimes
important.
it is important. And at the same time, you do need to be aware of the message that you're giving. And so it's finding that balance and also staying true to your authenticity and, your humility. I think you come across very with humility, I should say.
Thank you.
And so I don't think that's anything that you should worry about. I also think you deserve your flowers. Going back to
Mhm.
the spiritual entrepreneurship of it all, this shit is hard. It's not easy to build an audience, not easy to create this content. It's not easy to stay on top of it, especially like when you're starting from the ground up, creating brand awareness, your brand colors, your website, like going back and forth from like offers. I can't tell you how many times I've reworked my one-on-ones so that it's something that I know my clients can benefit from, but I also enjoy doing and
Mm,
creating these group experiences and making sure your best foot is forward. And some months are great and some months are not so great. And you're like, okay, how do we even out? You know what I mean? There's a lot
yes.
there. So we do deserve our flowers as well in that sense.
Entrepreneurship is definitely a roller coaster. And as much as I feel the responsibility to share my successes and, let people know that this is possible, I also feel like it's really important, especially with people who are trying to do this work or are doing
Yeah.
this work, to be so fucking for real and be
Yeah.
realistic and be like, hey, no matter what your dream is, it comes with highs and lows. And
Right.
the thing that I've been really excited about recently is like now that I've been doing this for a decade,
Mm-hmm.
I've finally been doing it long enough so that when I do have an ebb rather than a flow, in the
Mm-hmm.
past, I would be like, this is it. It's over.
Right.
Like how many
Yeah.
times did I feel like I had to close my business along the way? So
That root
many.
chakra shit.
And now I'm at
Yeah.
the point where I'm like, bestie, let's be
Right.
so honest with ourselves. This has happened before. It's
Mm-hmm.
always fine. Something always
Mm-hmm.
come like what goes down must come up. What goes up must
As
come down.
above,
Like
so below. Exactly.
exactly, like life as you were talking about, life is duality, and so is
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship, and
Mm-hmm.
I think there are we so especially for you and I, right? Like, we started doing this work in the era of the girl boss, like, the girl
Yes.
boss era, like,
Yes.
boss babe, like,
Mm-hmm.
as coaching started to rise to
Yeah.
the surface, and, like,
Yeah.
every coach is telling you that they know how to make a million like,
Right.
I always tell people that wanna do this work, don't hire a coach, and I say
Yeah.
that, have as someone who has hired a coach,
Yeah.
and
I have too. Yeah.
the investment that I think is more important is in people who are equally invested in your success. So for me, the best investments that I've ever made is my team.
Hell
I
yeah.
hired my
I was just
assistant
saying that.
before I had the money to do it, and now,
Mm-hmm.
she's been with me for 6, 7 years or something
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
I hired a social media manager when it was
Yeah.
time because I knew I needed to share my message more widely. I
Mm-hmm.
invested in a marketing manager so that
Yeah.
because I don't wanna be the business, I wanna be the
Right.
service. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be the business. I want to be the service. And so if I want to be the service, I have to delegate all the things that are the business and
Mm-hmm.
delegate them as much as I can, right? Because like even when it comes to social media, I still got to sit down and record the content. I got to still sit
Right.
down and like be the voice and be the message,
Right.
which I'm happy to be because that's the service. But when
Exactly.
it comes to like typing in them fucking hashtags and getting the messages, I'm like, that
Exactly.
is the business. And I
That
give
is
that
the
to someone whose
business.
business is business. Like my girl
Mm-hmm.
Jordan is so good at what she does. When we started, I was 11,000 followers. I'm at 90 now.
Yeah.
And she is
Yeah.
good. She's good at what she does. Like my
Right.
marketing manager, I wasn't sending out weekly newsletters. I had
Right.
like a what's it called? Email list of like 11,000 people that
Yeah.
were never hearing from me unless I had
Right.
something to sell them, like my mentorship
Right.
or something. And
Right.
then they were like, sorry, who the fuck are you? Like, what
Right.
value do you add
Right.
to my life?
Right.
So I invested in people who helped me invest in my audience, who helped me invest in the people who need to hear from me.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the investments that I have found to be worthwhile, but I don't
Mm-hmm.
need someone telling me, do it exactly like this and you'll whatever. It's like I respect that and I think there's a time and a place for that, but the truth is like from my personal truth, The best investments to make are the people who grow with you, who don't
Yeah,
just, get 9 grand from you right off the front and then
right,
abandon you, not abandon
right,
you, but, like, no
right,
longer
right,
need
right.
to support you in an
Mhm,
ongoing way.
mhm.
Whereas my team is successful when I am successful. They have a job
Right,
when I have a job. They're invested
exactly,
in my business because it also feeds their livelihood. And not only that, but
exactly.
I'm down for these women. I show up for them,
Right,
like, they're
right.
allowed to bring their kids onto our team meeting calls, like, when
Yeah,
they need space or
yeah,
they need a mental health day or they need whatever, I show up for them.
same.
When things are popping off, they get bonuses, like, they get rewarded for
Exactly,
their efforts and their part in that, and
right.
that is super important to me, like, invest in people who are invested in you, not
Mhm.
necessarily someone who wants to use you as a case study or, wants
Yeah,
to work with you for 3 months and then is no longer
right.
available to be a support to you.
Oh
So,
my God.
that's my
That
soapbox.
I love that you said that because I could not agree more. And I talk about this often with people in my private containers. Obviously, there's a time and a place for a coach and the type of coach, group, one on one,
Absolutely.
whatever, there's a time and place for that. But I do also believe the best investment I made was my first VA. And it took me a while to get my team together where it's like, okay, I trust you guys, let's do this work.
Yes.
But once it clicked and it gives you so much free time to be the creator, to be the
Yes.
person front facing, to do what you have to do, to have free time, to be able to put your phone on do not disturb and know that the business is still going to run. Like that is chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. I will pay my team whatever they want to
Exactly.
stay with me. Oh my God, it's so true. So, speaking of this whole coach scenario, it's a full
Tell
moon
me,
in Sag and I'm feeling spicy. I have a question for you.
please.
What do you think about these online coaches, spiritual or non, and
Mhm.
the way that they market is this like flex marketing? They like, they're on yachts. They're like, oh my God, I just made $1 million today and I did nothing. They're doing all this like flashy, look at me in my Range
Mhm.
Rover. Do you want to make this mystery offer? I'm sure you've seen that in the universe where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, mystery offer, come on in. If you guys are listening and you guys know who I'm talking about, there's like a group of
Mm.
coaches that were all mentored by the same, without saying any names, but I'm sure you can kind of pick up on that. They all are in this like web within each other
Mhm.
and they're marketing. Because again, I'm a Sagittarius sun, so I'm always learning. So I've been eyeing this little web for about a year now, just on the outside. And they all market the same way and they all have this flex way of doing things and it's really starting to grind my gears because I've got
Mm.
people coming to me and I'm having to pick up the pieces because they're afraid to do the work, because they feel like they'll never get that way, because they feel like they don't have this beautiful house, like you mentioned the house thing, or they feel
Mhm.
like they're not pretty enough or thin enough or glamorous enough to do this work. And it's because of this web of individuals doing this sort of marketing tactic. How do you feel? I don't keep
Ugh,
you.
you know, I
Yeah.
have a lot of really nuanced feelings about this
Hmm.
because on one hand, I do believe that it's important to have people to look up to
Yeah. Yeah.
that show you that certain levels of experience are possible.
Right. I would agree with that.
I really do believe that that is important.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I don't resonate
Mhm.
with the flexing, as you put it.
Yeah.
And it's funny
Yeah.
because my husband is actually in marketing
Oh,
and
wow.
he runs several different software companies. He also is in digital marketing. And it's funny because, he mostly markets to women, right?
Mhm.
And I always think to myself, if any man is gonna do it, I'm glad it's Ethan because I
Right.
trust him. He's a
Right.
feminist. He loves
Right.
women. He believes in
Yeah.
us. He believes in our autonomy. Like,
Yes, Ethan.
truly, truly, like,
Yeah.
he's a really I can't say it enough, like, 10 years in, I'm falling more in love every day. Like, I truly believe he is like, I look for him in every lifetime, and when I found him in this one, I
Mm.
was like, "There you are." Like,
Oh my
that's a whole thing
God,
we could talk about
babes.
too.
Say you're
But
a Cancer rising without saying you're a Cancer rising.
I
I'm
know,
over
right?
here
Like,
belting at her love. I
I
know.
truly adore him, and,
Aw.
he no we talk about this all the time because the truth is He manages millions in ad
Mhm.
spend,
Mhm.
and we've built a really beautiful life together. We both work really hard. We both
Right.
bring in that bacon. We do our thing, and we both get the ick when it comes to
Yeah.
that, like that,
Yeah.
that
The ick,
mentality.
that's
And
a
he
great way to
knows
put
that
it.
if he was doing that, he could be even more successful. But the
Right.
truth is,
That's the thing. If you
it's
market
just
that way, go ahead, finish what
no,
you're saying.
like totally.
Oh,
We're saying the same thing.
yeah, because that's exactly it. I'm going to tell anybody who's listening, if you market that way, if you inflate your numbers, which I think a lot of coaches do too,
100%.
yeah, if you inflate your numbers and you talk about these millions, these hundreds of thousands, these 8 clients you signed at 50K a pop, it will work, but at what
Mhm.
expense? And that's what I
Yes.
think people aren't realizing, at what expense. I'm not selling my soul. Like this, I'm in service to the collective
Yes.
and to source, you know?
Yes. I don't think we need to talk about our success
Right.
in order to be an example of it.
Or our numbers even, like,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's
Exactly.
necessary to
Like,
prove that I'm the real deal. I've got testimonials up the ass that say so. I don't need
ex-
to tell you how much I made in 2023.
you know,
That's not relevant.
this recently was something I was thinking deeply about because there's a woman named Jen Sincero who wrote the book You Are a Badass. And
Mm,
I really, really, really love what she puts out into the world. And she was recently talking about
write that down.
like a program that she will walk you through, like, you know, pitching and writing a proposal for
Mhm.
a best-selling book, because her book has been like a multi-time bestseller. And yes, absolutely, there are plants on the bestseller list.
Ooh.
There are people who are put there to be
Mhm.
successful, just like there are in the music industry, just like everything.
Yep.
I truly believe that Jen's success is her own. I believe that
Right.
her book is, it's fire flames. Like, her book is
Mhm.
fire. There's no doubt. Like, it is an amazing life-changing book. So her success is earned. And I was
Yeah.
looking at this video where she was talking about her, making this program. And at no point did she say, you guys know I'm a multi-time best-selling author, blah,
Right.
blah, blah. She just
Right.
said, I can help you cut through your bullshit if you want to make a best-selling book. And I was
That's
like,
it.
that's all I need to hear, baby. That's
That's
all
all
I
you
need to know.
need.
And
Right.
the thing is, she's not out here going, I'm a best-selling author. She
Right.
just is a best-selling author.
Thank
She just
you.
is. And
We
I
don't
don't need
have
her
to
to
do that.
tell
We
me
just be.
repeatedly. Exactly.
Exactly.
So I would rather learn from someone who's living the life I want to live
Mhm.
than learn from someone who's telling me they're living the life I want to live. And
It's
then someone that's
off-putting.
trying to show me, like,
Mhm.
I never feel the need to flaunt. And the truth is, I don't even
No.
post my like nice testimony. Like, my team's always like, what if we shared this love letter, this fan mail? And I'm like, it's private. Like, that person sent
Yeah,
me that because they love me, not because
right.
I'm going to use. And sometimes I think they're amazing, and I think, they're worth sharing so that other
Mhm,
people can resonate with that. But if
mhm.
it's just about me, it doesn't feel good to me. So
Right.
I think there's a place for it. I think there's a time for it. I think there's a world for it. And also, I believe in the law of resonance. Like, I
Yeah,
believe that that type of marketing resonates with people who are on that type of journey. And the truth is,
yeah.
maybe that's what they need to be doing in this lifetime. Like,
Ooh,
maybe there's a lesson in, not maybe, there is.
I forgot
But
about the
no,
law of
there's
resonance,
a
honey.
lesson
Very true.
in living that vibe for
Mhm.
those people. And I'm not here to say, stop learning that lesson. Like,
Right, right,
if
right.
that's where they're feeling pulled and feeling called, it's because their soul is trying to get something out of that experience. So
Yes.
that's
Yes,
fine. Like, live your
yes.
life over there. And I
Right.
respect that you are on your shit. And I respect that you're on your
Mhm.
journey. And me and my journey are just over here.
We're
Like,
just over
I
here.
really believe in live and let live. So as long
Yeah,
as those people aren't saying,
aren't bothering
I'm a
me.
bad coach, like, I'm not
Mhm,
doing, you know what I mean? As long as they're not
mhm,
shitting on
mhm.
my parade,
Right,
then
right,
I'm not
right.
going to shit on theirs.
Do you,
But
boo-boo? Mhm.
but, there are other spaces that I would love to talk about as well that aren't just that, like, flex coaching, but there's
Yeah,
also, like, the cool girl clique in the
yeah.
spiritual community
Tell me
of,
more.
like,
I know who you're talking
the
about. Go ahead.
famous girls who know each other, like, they're super
They hang out
famous.
together.
Yes, they
Everybody
all
knows
hang
who they
out, they go on
are.
their fancy vacations, they do these things, and
Mhm.
here's the thing is, respect and love to them as well. Like, they're on their journey, and the truth is, I appreciate the flex coaches. I appreciate the cool
Mhm.
girl clique because I can see them and understand that those things aren't in resonance for me.
Right.
And as soon as I stopped feeling, because that girl boss era really took a hold of me. Let me tell you something. I was in
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
masculine,
Yeah.
operating out of like false ideas of like,
Mhm.
my business for a very long time fed my ego.
Yeah.
It showed
Very
me it was
vulnerable
the
to
space
say. I
where
love
I
that.
found value in myself, where I felt
Mhm.
like I was worthy, was if I was
Mhm.
successful. And it was at my
Mhm.
highest peak of success that I actually walked away and took 2 years off from what I was doing because I
Mm.
was like, something about this doesn't feel right for me anymore. I get anxiety before my sessions and I'm not supposed to
Yeah.
feel that way. I'm not supposed
Right.
to feel anxiety doing what I'm meant to do. So
Right.
I need to take a pause. And as soon as I stopped feeling like I had to get into that clique to,
Yeah.
be successful, or I had to make the 7 figures to be successful or whatever, as soon
Yeah.
as I stopped comparing myself to other people's journeys, all my blessings started coming to me because I
Right.
started being myself. I started walking my path. And it's funny because the more myself I am, the more success, if you want to call it that, the more fulfillment
Mhm.
of my ambition and my
Mhm.
potential I am
Mhm.
achieving. But at the same time, the more that I allow myself to access those vibrations and those frequencies of fulfillment, the more myself I am. It's like a two-way
Right.
street. It's like the
Right.
authenticity allows it to happen, and the allowing
Yeah.
creates space for my authenticity. It's truly
Mm.
like a two-way street.
I
And
hope you guys
so,
heard that. That was really, really beautiful. And
thank
it just,
you.
that really just
Struck a
etched.
chord. So yeah,
Yeah.
like, flex over there, girly pops. I love that you're on your super yachts.
Yeah.
I love that you're living those dreams. Cool girl click. You guys are cool as fuck. Like, I wanted to be friends
Yeah.
with you for a reason. You're cool ass girls, like doing cool ass
And,
shit. And
and
I
you're cool as fuck
respect you.
too. And I'm cool
And
as fuck too.
and we are
Hmm.
cool as fuck. And I
Hmm.
love these conversations. I love this
Me
space where we
too.
can just be honest about it and be like, listen, you don't have to be one of the cool girls to be a cool girl. You
That's
don't
it.
have to be flexing your millions to make a million,
Exactly. But
you
if
know?
that's what you're attracted to, cool. And that's why I brought it up. And I brought it up a few times with different guests because I think it's important. Because if I'm seeing this stuff, my
They're
potential
seeing that
clients are
stuff.
seeing this stuff. Exactly. And one of my biggest things, one of the core values inside of the Starseed Shadows universe is like, you can do and be whatever the fuck you want to do and be. And
Mhm.
for some people, it's a little controversial. I fully believe that.
Me too.
Whatever you desire and deserve is right within your reach. I'm walking proof of it. The people that come into my universe are walking proof of it. And I don't want anybody to feel like they're less than. And again, I think that's that Cancer rising, teenager being, the last picked in gym class, liking the boy that
Mm.
didn't like me. I had a thing for gay boys. I loved gay boys before they knew they were gay. I still do. My gay boys out there listening, they know who they are. Like literally.
Listen, they're fine. They're
Ex- ex-
fine. Like,
Exactly. Oh my God. And so, I just, when I built this business, that was one thing that I wanted to make sure the message that I got out. And in the age of Aquarius, in the age of technology is like booming, and we're only going to see even more advancements in it. And it's this crazy catch 22 because it's allowed us to connect, which is fantastic, but it also allows for comparison, imposter syndrome, feeling less than, like you're not good enough based on the curated shit that we see on our feeds, the doom
mhm.
scrolling, the bad sleeping, the up all night, anxiety. We could go on and on and on, but at the same time, we wouldn't be in business without this level of technology either.
So
And so I
true.
do think these conversations are so important just so that as people are building whatever the fuck they want to build, that they understand that it's really important to create boundaries around things that cause them anxiety. So if
Mm.
seeing homegirl over there on a super yacht talking about her millions is making you feel less than, you might need to mute homegirl. You might need to block
Yes.
homegirl, and that's okay. That's fine.
If
You
something
know?
is creating dissonance in you, listen,
Yeah,
listen, we learn through friction as well. Like, we
we
learn through
do.
suffering and we learn
We
through joy
do.
equally, equally.
I agree. Yeah.
However, there's a point at which we become a glutton for punishment. There's a point
Yes.
at which we push ourselves in a direction that is causing us harm and feeding our
Hmm.
ego
Right.
rather than supporting our beliefs. And this is something you said, something so important. And last night, so I live in Arizona where recreational cannabis is legal.
It's
And
legal here too in New York.
yes.
Yeah.
And so that is something that I really love and enjoy.
Hmm.
My evening involves a little wind down with my little
Hmm.
edibles
A
and
little
whatnot.
edible. Me too. My
I
evening,
can't
a little
smoke. I'm a
edible.
singer. So I
Yeah.
take my
I don't
edibles.
smoke it either.
And
That's
so
funny.
just last night, a thought came to me that I want to share because it resonates with exactly what you were saying.
Mm.
I'm gonna read it like verbatim.
Please
I wrote,
do.
note to
Please do.
self, I could never imagine myself as a leader before, not because it's not possible, but because I couldn't imagine myself that way.
Mm.
That is what a limiting belief is. a belief we have that
Yes.
blocks us from accessing certain experiences or vibrations because we don't
Mhm.
believe that they are possible or accessible to us.
Right.
And I was like,
Oh my
"Whoa,"
God,
when that
yeah.
came through, I was like, "Damn," because
Ooh.
listen, it's a tough line to toe because we live in a
Right.
world where spirituality is whitewashed. We live in a
Right.
world where we're living inside of toxic positivity, and
Mhm.
it's dangerous to say we create our reality because people
Right.
are out there going, "Did I create my cancer? Did I create my this and my
Exactly.
that?"
Yeah.
And it's like, look, not all suffering is brought upon us through our thoughts. Like
Right.
sometimes it's something that, there is a lesson in everything. And I
There
say that as
is.
someone who has experienced deep, intense
Mhm.
hardship, things that people
Yes.
don't know about. You don't
Yes.
know what I've experienced, and that's
Right.
totally fine. But again, it doesn't mean I haven't experienced something profoundly difficult. And
Right.
I still believe that my thoughts create my reality, and if
I
I
would totally
want to
agree.
access the next level of my reality, I have to bring my thoughts to the next level of thinking.
Mhm.
And the idea that, like, that I myself am the thing that holds that anything is possible to me, anything is
Mhm.
accessible to me if
Mhm.
my brain can get itself on the wavelength of seeing and believing that it's true.
That it's true and that it's happening.
Yes, that it's already in the works, like, that there is a point in time in the future where that already
Mm.
exists, and I am the person that is bringing me to that moment in time. Because there's a
Right.
moment in the future where we're having this conversation,
Right.
and we're both like, "Remember when back in 2024, we were both talking
Exactly.
about the things we were working on and things we were creating?"
Right.
And
Right.
I love to imagine myself in that moment, but I'm
Mhm.
also grateful for who I am in this moment because she's the bitch making it
Exactly.
happen. She's the
Exactly.
girl doing the legwork, and I
Ah,
respect me. Like, I respect who I am today
right.
because she is the girl putting in the work, and she's
Yes.
also the girl reaping the rewards of the girl who put in the work yesterday, and I'm
Right.
grateful to her.
Every day, every minute is a fucking opportunity. And I love what you're saying because this is all stuff I believe and the foundations of who I am. And I'm reading this book right now. I'm sure you've heard of it by Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza.
We love
Um,
him.
yeah, Breaking the Habit of Being You, I believe it's
Breaking the habit
called.
of being yourself, yeah.
In the first 20 pages, I'm like, I am picking up everything you're putting down. You know, my undergrad's in bio. So when he brings the science into it, I'm like, oh,
You're
you
like,
got me. Oh
yeah,
my God. So those you book lovers out there, you are a badass and Breaking the Habit of Being You are two books that we both are highly, highly
highly
recommending.
recommend.
Zoe, how do you feel about witch wound? Because I feel like this is where we're going next with some of these topics we're talking about.
You know, this is tough, and again,
Yeah.
I'm learning to say things that are hard to receive.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I believe that that is one of the things I'm here to do.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that nothing has any more power over us than we allow it to.
Ooh, say it louder
Like,
for the people in the back.
I don't do I think I was burned at the stake in a past life? For sure I fucking was. For
Right.
fucking sure.
Yeah.
And do I let it control the way I show up today? Like, no.
Right.
Because I believe that I'm capable of looking at that as being a moment in time in the past. But I know
Hmm.
that it's safe for me to be a witch today, and
Right.
so I am. Like,
Right.
I
Right.
feel safe in my craft. I feel safe in my coven.
Hmm.
I feel safe in
Yeah.
my I feel safe being witnessed. Like, there was a
Hmm.
time where I didn't like to tell people when they would ask me what I do for a living,
I know
not
that. Yep.
because
I know
not
exactly what you
because
mean.
I was ashamed of it, but because I'm
Mhm.
just trying to get a haircut. I'm not trying to
That's
channel
it.
your dead grandma. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm just trying to like
Facts.
live my life. But
Yeah.
now, no matter where I am, I tell people because I believe that it is important to live out loud and be
Yeah.
willing to start a conversation with someone that you might not expect is
Right.
interested or curious. Like, I believe
Hmm.
now that I'm able to open doors for people by sharing where I'm at. And I believe that the witch wound is another tool in certain instances, right? Like, all of our wounds deserve time to be witnessed and processed and held and
Hmm.
loved and nurtured for a
Hmm.
time. And then there's a point where ego's holding on to them because it keeps us safe in the devil we know.
Mm.
Like. And
Yeah.
so if you've sat with your witch wound, if you've processed your witch wound, if you've acknowledged it, if you have spent the time navigating it and building positive relationships with a community, and you're in a better space to move past it, I think you can go ahead and let that go.
Yeah.
But if you're not there yet, I would encourage you to take the steps to move past it because I don't believe anything should be an excuse,
No,
including wounds of our past lives.
no, I fully agree with that. And you kind of answered my question, but I want it more fleshed out.
Sure, yeah.
My next question was going to be, what would you say to those that are suffering or working through witch wound at I guess a micro level versus a macro level? So
Sure.
something as simple as somebody who has a knack for reading tarot cards that I'm sure you and I can both relate to. As soon as the cards are in my hand, it was like I was at home way back
Mhm.
when, and they're realizing, oh my God, I'm really good at this. And they're seeing people like you and I creating successful businesses and they really want to do it, but they can't even tell their sister that they read tarot. Like they're not even there yet and they don't know what to do about that being seen, because how can you be seen on a macro level if you can't even be seen on a micro one?
You
Yeah.
know, this is again a hard truth,
Right.
or at least maybe I think of it that way.
Yeah.
But I do know that in order to be the fullest version of who you are, like in order
Hmm.
to be yourself the most completely,
Hmm.
there are things that you have to trade.
Yeah.
And some of those might be your intimate relationships. Some
Yeah.
of that might be, just the you're sometimes you have to just trade the fear of being
Hmm.
honest with the people
Hmm.
around you, even if they don't understand it. And let me
Hmm.
tell you right now, not being understood will not kill you. It will
No.
not kill you.
And
And
most of us are used to that in the spiritual community. Most of us are like, the black sheep, the freaks in high
absolutely.
school, the emo kids, the
Look,
problem child.
if
That's like a
you
normal
think some of my
thing.
closest friends and people in my intimate circle don't believe in what I do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that they don't believe in me. It doesn't
Right.
mean that they don't love and respect me. And the
Right.
people who don't get access to me because I'm
Exactly.
not going to let other people's opinions, beliefs,
Hmm.
thoughts, feelings dictate my reality. My life is mine. It is not
Hmm.
theirs. Just like I don't feel like it's fair for me to be in charge of someone else's life experience.
Right.
Like
Right.
anything that comes through in session, I remind people it's just an invitation. If you feel
Hmm.
ready to claim this, claim it. If you don't,
Hmm.
we
That's
can
okay
continue to
too.
work on that. But
Yeah.
it is an invitation and people can invite me into playing small and it's my job
Mhm.
to say no thank you.
Right.
That's my job. So
Yeah.
there are hard conversations ahead of you. There are,
Yeah.
things to let go of. There are
Hmm.
stories that you can't live inside of anymore.
That
And
part.
when you
Hmm.
trade those things, I promise you the reward outweighs the risk. Truly,
Sure does.
truly.
Sure
But
does.
you have to develop a relationship with risk
Hmm.
to be in order to blossom. And that's something
Right.
that Ethan and I talk about all the time because we both are entrepreneurs. We both own our own businesses. We work from
Yeah. Oh
home. Our house is shaped like a capital H, and I work on one side and he works on the other.
my God, I
And I
love
can see his
it.
office across from me through the windows.
Ah,
And
uh,
which I love.
yeah.
And we both have such a strong relationship with risk. Like we take
Yeah.
risks every single day.
Me
No one
too.
understands what we do. Our
Yeah.
parents don't understand the
Hmm.
money that we make, the money that we spend. Our family,
Hmm.
like our community doesn't
Hmm.
know how we do what we do, or,
Hmm.
the things that we are willing to do, they might not be willing to do. And guess what?
Right.
That's okay. I'm not
Totally.
asking them to risk their livelihood being a professional psychic. I'm just asking them not
Exactly.
to get in the way of me doing that.
Right. And I think my friends, those of you who are listening, what Zoe's saying is something super powerful. Like, I'm not asking you to jump on board of something you don't want to jump on board of. I'm just saying, please don't get in my way. And to add on to that, being a TV personality has also, you said something about they don't get access to me. And that is something that I think is very, very important as you like expand. Anybody who's looking to expand into this world, we must remember that we decide who gets access to us. And I think, especially as women identifying folks, that line has been blurred a lot for the people that came before us, like in our ancestral lineage and in our own line and in our own lives. You know, Controversial opinion, but it has been dictated to us for quite some time at who gets access. And I think the revolution of the witch, of reclaiming that word, of reclaiming spirituality, of normalizing spiritual practices, I think one of the biggest pieces of that revolution is saying, no, I decide who gets access to me. not you or my mother or my partner. I do. And I don't have to give you access to me if I don't want to. I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
respond to you. I don't have to answer your question. I don't even have to take you as a client, no matter how much you want to pay me. I don't have to respond to
Mm-hmm.
your email. I don't have to do any of that. I choose this. And there's so much power in that. And anybody who's looking to do this work, I think start there with what are your limiting beliefs around who gets access to you if you're suffering from witch wound and you're looking to expand in this world, because again, you can. It's up to you.
Mm-hmm. Mhm. Thank you for articulating that so powerfully. And I
Mm.
do really feel that at the core that is where we have to begin. We have to
Mm-hmm.
begin with the willingness to decide that nothing gets to come between our authentic self
Mm-hmm.
and who we are. Like bringing
Exactly.
those things together,
Yeah.
human experience and the authentic self, living in
Mm-hmm.
embodiment, living in unity, living in oneness. Like nothing gets to come between me and that reality of myself. And
Right.
it's hard because, and I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm
Right.
also not saying it's the worst thing in the world. Like a
Right.
lot of times, the thing that we're so afraid of that we think is this
Mhm.
big, insurmountable mountain to climb, we end up being like, oh, that was more like an anthill. Like, I'm
Yeah,
surprised. I'm surprised by how easy that was.
exactly. Yeah.
And the truth is too, like the more yourself you are in front of those
Mm-hmm.
around you, the more you give them permission to be themselves as well. Like you create
Exactly.
an invitation because maybe
Mm-hmm.
your support system is built of nervous Nellies and Debbie Downers, and if they
Exactly.
watch you be a like a badass and do your
Right.
thing, it might inspire them to be able to
Mhm.
take those same action steps, which is really what you and I are doing. We're just expanding our inner
Exactly.
circle out into the world and living out loud in front of those people and saying, "Hey,
Right.
look, we're doing this. If we're doing this, you can do it." Because I'm not just a
Exactly.
regular Joe Schmo.
That's
Like
it.
I like to tell people that like I wasn't
Mhm.
born in, a
It
piece
right.
of golden muslin. Like I was born
No.
just like everybody else, naked
Everybody else, you know?
and welcomed into
Exactly.
this earth.
So true. So true. Okay, Zoe, so before we end the conversation, I love to ask my guests this question and whatever comes through comes through. What does shadow work mean to you?
Everything.
Mhm.
It means everything to me.
I know, right?
Shadow work to me is the willingness to hold our wounds and the pieces of us that operate out of fear. And that fear can be based in the reality of our human experience, but understanding that we are not our shadow, but our shadow is a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And it is when we allow ourselves to dive into the shadow that we are able to make the biggest shifts in our life.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And for me, that looked like imagining my shadow like a puddle and walking into it and sinking through it and coming out the other side, realizing like it wasn't
Mm,
just a puddle, it was an infinite
way
pool
bigger than
and,
that.
like a portal. It was a portal.
Yeah.
And I really believe that shadow work is the portal into our highest reality. It's
Mm-hmm.
just our willingness to explore the spaces that need our love and attention. Like it's the space
Mm-hmm.
that needs the light. We have to bring the
Mm-hmm.
light into the shadow, look at what is there, and shine the light of love onto it so that those pieces of us no longer have to live in isolation and neglect and they can live
Mm-hmm.
as part of the whole self. Like shadow work is to me reclaiming the pieces of ourselves that other people have told us that are unworthy or undeserving or not
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Uh and once we bring those pieces into the light, we bring them into the wholeness of who we are and we become
Mm-hmm.
more whole. That's the
Mm.
way that I experience it and
Yeah.
practice it.
Oh, God, I love it. Such a good definition. Amazing. Zoe, what a full conversation this was.
And there's
Uh,
more. There's
There's
more to
so
talk
much
about.
more. We have a part two coming out on your
Yes.
podcast. Speaking of which, let the people know, where can they find you? How can they support you? How can they book you? Tell us.
Thank you for asking that question.
Sure.
So that is changing. I'm in the middle of a rebrand. So at
Okay.
the moment, if you visit merhipsy.com,
Mhm. Okay.
merhipsy.com,
And
you
we'll
will
have it in the
find
show
me.
notes.
Yes, you'll find me, my services, what I offer. And then on socials, I am at the Zoey Greco,
Okay.
ZoeyGreco. And pretty soon my website will be zoegreco.com as
Okay.
well. So claiming my
Okay.
name, claiming my identity,
That's
being my whole
right.
self in front of everybody.
Ah, I love it. So good, so good, so good. Thank you so much for coming on. I know that The audience is going to eat this up. You guys already know, friends. If you love the episode, share it with a friend, share it with your partner, share it on the web. Tag me, tag Zoe, Ashley Michelle 90 Day. You guys already know the drill. We love you and appreciate the support so damn much. And I will see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao for now. Hello, friends. I hope you loved today's episode. Make sure you share it with a friend, share it with somebody that you love, and tag me on the gram at Ashley Michelle 90 Day and let me know your thoughts. Leaving that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify is literally what helps this work get to the right people. As you may or may not know, we are in the middle of a spiritual revolution, and us being able to get our hands on resources like this podcast and others is what is literally going to make the world go round. So do me this favor and please leave me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and share the episode with somebody you love. It really, truly does mean the world to me. I love you so very much, and I will see you in the next one.